Hello and welcome to the Actual Tech Media Summit. My name is Jess and I am excited to be here with you all today. But before we jump into our content, I have some basic information to cover with you all. Now let's kick off our day here today by taking a quick tour of your audience console, and we're going to start with the questions window. If you haven't already said hi, there is a whole giant awesome community of people out there, so reach out and give a wave to the other members of the Actual Tech Media community. Also keep in mind, if you have any tech issues today, a browser refresh is probably going to fix just about anything, but if those tech gremlins are clinging on, no problem. Just throw a comment in the question section and our crew will be there to help. We also want this to be an informative webinar for you, so throughout today's summit, we hope you'll get engaged and ask all your burning questions. Not only will we have team members responding to you over live chat, we also have a dedicated Q&A session at the end of our presentation. And if we do not get to your question during the webinar, don't worry, because the awesome experts that we have here with us today will be following up with you after we wrap. All right, next up, there are going to be lots of cool aha brain light up moments on the summit today. And if you want to share those with your community, we love that. We've made it nice and easy. You can use the Twitter button right there in your audience console, and the hashtag for today's summit will automatically be added to your post. And our last stop on this guided tour, be sure to check out the handouts tab for some resources and takeaways from our speakers here today. We have an info pack collection of solution briefs, white papers, data sheets, free trials, ebooks, upcoming webinars, and more. So many great resources, so be sure to go and explore. And if that wasn't enough fun, we also have some exciting prizes that we'll be giving away throughout the summit today. Now, I will tell you a little bit more about those later on. But a few quick reminders for you all. First, you do need to be in attendance during the live webinar in order to qualify to win, and we will follow up with all winners after we wrap the summit today. Now, all of our winners must submit an IRS Form W-9 to Actual Tech Media, and all winners must meet the Actual Tech Media prize terms and conditions. If you're not sure what those are, you can find the full T's and C's in that Handouts tab. Again, just click on the Handouts tab, scroll down to the bottom, and you'll find them there. Now, the absolute most important thing to remember is that we love getting all of your insightful questions during these live webinars. In fact, we love it so much, we have a special additional prize for all you inquisitive folks out there. In today's summit, we will be giving away a prize for the best question asked in each of our live sessions. The expert speakers and teams will be reviewing all the questions asked after the webinar, which means even if your question does not get read out in a live session, there is still a chance to win. And if you are a lucky winner here today and you'd like to donate the value of your prize, we have several wonderful organizations that we partner with. So let us know when we follow up about your big win, and we will get that rolling for you. Again, we are so happy to have all of you here live with us at the summit today, and we want to keep that good feeling going. So let's connect on social media. Reach out and connect with Actual Tech Media on Twitter, LinkedIn. We have lots of great content, and we always want to hear from you. And if you're looking for more awesome resources and content right after we wrap the summit today, make sure you subscribe to the Actual Tech Media channel on YouTube. Another fun way to win a prize and grow this awesome community is to refer an industry friend or coworker to the Actual Tech Media webinar series. Now, you'll find a link to do that right in that Handouts tab, and you will be automatically redirected at the end of the webinar as well. Both you and your coworker could win a prize, and we hold those drawings every month. So be sure to refer a friend, because it could quite literally be a win-win situation. Next, we have a cool opportunity for all the decision makers out there to get connected with new and emerging tech and innovative vendors. Here's how it works. All you need to do is click on the link back in that Handouts tab and fill out the application. The Actual Tech crew will then match you with some vendors that we think you should be chatting with based on your needs. There will also be fun opportunities that you can choose to join in, like surveys, test running new solutions, extended demos, and so on. You'll get some chances to win extra prizes, chat with great people, and learn about the hottest new trends in tech. So be sure to apply or send the link to a decision maker in your team. Now, I want to take a quick minute here to remind you all about one of my all-time favorite resources, and that is ransomware.org. You can find out everything you need to know about ransomware, how to prepare, prevent, and recover. This site is jam-packed with information, helpful tips, checklists, strategic approaches, case studies, everything you need all in one place. So wherever you are in your ransomware preparedness journey, there is something for you at ransomware.org. Go check it out and start exploring. Okay, I have one more exciting resource that I have to tell you all about today. That is the Gorilla Guide Book Club. This is going to give you access to free enterprise IT books authored by top industry experts, so you can stay up to date on trending enterprise technology. And yes, these books will work on your Kindle, your mobile device, and again, completely free. You can download these awesome resources at gorilla.guide, and there's a link for you in the handouts tab as well. Okay, well, we have covered a lot of important things already, and I don't know about you all, but I am excited and ready to dive in, so let's get going. All right, well, hello and welcome to the Actual Tech Media's Enterprise IT Virtual Summit. And today we are talking about exploring innovation in IT, up-leveling business outcomes. And this is really the core of what we're looking to do when we join in these types of conversations, right? I mean, yeah, okay, a lot of us are tech junkies who just like to learn about new innovation for the sake of innovation, sure. But for the most part, we are always researching, always exploring, and looking for those new tools, new solutions and services that will help our organizations power up and meet those next level organizational goals. And what better time to be talking about all of this than as we bring 2023 to a close? I know, I can't believe how fast that's coming to an end. And we start turning our attention towards 2024. To help us with this look upwards and outwards, today we will be hearing from industry leaders and experts from StrongDM, from Rubrik, and from TierPoint. So this day is going to be absolutely filled with exciting trends that you should have in mind, innovative tools and solutions, some insightful questions from all of you. I know, I can see how pumped up and ready you are to get started. We're going to have some fun dialogue, and there's going to be a lot of takeaways that are going to help you power up as we head into the new year. And in order for you to get the most out of this virtual summit, I am just going to cover a few little housekeeping things, starting with I'm going to reintroduce myself again for those of you who I have not met yet. Hi, hello. My name is Jess Steinbach. I'm with Actual Tech Media, and I am very happy to be one of your moderators for our summit today. Now, my wonderful fellow moderators, Scott Becker and Keith Ward, will be here with us on live chat today. Keith is going to join us for our keynote in just a moment as well. And as a special treat for all of you today, we have the one and only Melissa Palmer joining me as a guest moderator on the summit. Hi, Melissa. Thanks so much for being here with us today.
Hi, Jess. Thanks so much for having me. I am so happy to be here.
Well, I'm pretty excited to have you here with me. And Melissa, I think maybe let's start out speaking of excitement. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the prizes we have here on our summit today?
Oh, absolutely, Jess. So check out this list of prizes we have for all of you to win today on the summit. We have 1 of 2 Apple Watch Ultras, and you even get to choose the band you want. 1 of 3 Apple HomePods. 1 of 3 Kindle Scribes. And that's not all. We're also giving away $300 Amazon gift cards every 30 minutes. Now, as a reminder, you must be in attendance during the summit to qualify for the prizes. And as Jess mentioned at the start of our day, all winners must meet the Actual Tech Media prize terms and conditions. If you're not familiar with that, you can find the full T's and C's in the handout section. Okay, so we have covered a lot of good things already, and I think it's time to get these sessions rolling. So first, I absolutely want to welcome Ed Tittle, an IT analyst and author, for our keynote today. And Jess, I think Keith is waiting in the wings with Ed right now, so let's get them out here with us.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to what I know is going to be a great summit today. And to help set the table for that summit, I'm having a discussion about up-leveling business outcomes with Ed Tittle. Ed is a well-known author, an IT analyst, and a former IT admin who's worked in many business settings. So he knows a thing or two about how to use IT to make business better. Ed, welcome today.
Thanks a lot. Glad to be here.
It is great to have you as always. So why don't we dive in now? What I wanted to ask you first was, how has IT changed the way business does business in the current era?
Well, you know, it would almost be better to ask the question of how has IT not changed business? And that would be a much shorter answer for sure. But it's pretty much the case that everything about IT is changing, and that businesses are finding more and better ways to make use of IT to help them change and become more effective and productive, especially when it comes to reaching out to partners, customers, and clients and engaging and interacting with all of the various people that they work with to make their businesses run. If I wanted to mention just a few areas where the Homer Simpson is going to come up, it would have to be things like cloud computing. Think of all the different ways that we're using cloud computing for everything from storing files through Google Drive and OneDrive to, full-blown virtual infrastructures erected in a data center somewhere far away where we don't even care as long as it works. And then, so we're dealing with lots of different things that are pushing people to use IT differently and more effectively. And uh, to those ends, um, cloud computing and development also are pushing people towards ever shorter release cycles. We're now in a Slack and GitHub driven environment where aggressive use of short development cycles means weekly scrums or interactions to get code up and running and out the door and in people's hands. It's a whole different world from what it used to be. There's also the impact of increasing regulation, and I'm thinking things like HIPAA and the European GDRP, the Payment Card Initiative, and then also California just introduced a new digital equity bill of rights that promises to make things in the US more like they are in Europe once people digest and understand what's really going on there. So to return to your original question, the answer is it's changing things across the board and mostly in good ways to make things faster, less expensive, and more secure.
Exactly. And those changes are seeming to come very, very rapidly in a way they didn't used to. And they didn't used to. I mean, business has to respond faster than ever before. So I absolutely agree with that. So let's move on to business security. Always a hot topic and hotter than ever these days. So
Definitely.
businesses in the current era are vulnerable in a way they've never been vulnerable before due to the scourge of ransomware, primarily in the current era. That's one of the big ways. So given that reality, how can businesses protect themselves in this environment where everything is kind of distributed? Data can be everywhere, bits of programs, microservices can be everywhere. Everything is scattered around in a way that it wasn't before when we were looking at walled off data centers.
This is very true. And if you want to just stop and think a little bit about the scary numbers that are driving this, we're looking at an average ransom that's being requested right now of $1.5 million, and we're looking at over half the companies in the U.S. in the 2023 timeframe reporting at least an attack, if not a ransom paid, in that period. So the main thing is get protected. And as you point out, in a distributed environment, it's not just enough to be able to get back and stand back up what you have under your control. You also have to make sure that you have coverage and the ability to stand back up what's under other people's control. And so increasingly, enterprises and organizations are turning to more comprehensive data protection and recovery services that not only allow them to um, keep track of and create immutable backups for their local resources, but to do the same for their distributed resources, be they in a SaaS environment, be they on a public cloud or a private cloud somewhere, so that they can actually um, declare an event and start standing things back up pretty much as soon as they recognize that ransomware is happening. And indeed, the right technical solutions will also keep track of things like encrypted file writes, a sure sign, especially when they occur in large numbers, that ransomware may be knocking at the door, if not in the door already.
Absolutely. So let's move on to another extremely hot topic right now, and that is, of course, artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is having just an enormous transformative impact in almost the kind of ways that I remember virtualization, how it kind of upended everything. I don't know if it's an exact analogy, but it kind of has that feeling to me. So, how do businesses harness this? How do they leverage artificial impact? And how can artificial intelligence also impact them maybe in a negative way?
Yeah, this is a terrific question. I've been running into AI pretty much everywhere that I've gone looking at IT technology and use of technology in business in general. In the last month, I've had a conversation with a chief psychometrician who helps run the Microsoft certification programs. And I've also talked to a data analyst whose job is to analyze commodity markets and to try to extract useful intelligence to guide future investing. And in every case, the topic that's at top of mind and top of frenetic activity is artificial intelligence. And you're right to say that AI is a two-edged sword because it can cut both ways. So even though in the case, for example, of certification, it makes it much easier and faster for Microsoft to generate question items for their certification tests so they can keep turning the question banks over and protect the integrity of their exams. They also have to watch out for steering themselves in the wrong direction. And one of the things that Dr. Munson told me was that they can't use bad examples to drive machine learning because if they do, it completely blows up the data sets. On the other hand, the negative example I got from the financial analyst was that quality control and making sure that the data sets are properly cleaned and actually reflect some semblance of reality is totally essential because AI will happily go the wrong direction as gladly as it will go the right direction. And so quality control, checking the value and the relevance of the data that drives AI and making sure that the connection to the real world actually works is probably the most important things that companies trying to make good use of AI can do. Because, as I said, it will just as cheerfully go completely into left field as it will go for the bullseye.
Exactly, and AI is increasingly crucial for automation as well. You know, we're seeing it for things like system monitoring, for example. There's no way for admins to keep up anymore with the attacks, as we discussed in the last question. You need even for small shops, you need a significant amount of automation just to keep up with things like monitoring and observability and data transformation and all of that. So the impact of AI, both positive and negative, I think is only going to increase. Well, Ed, we've come to the end of our time, and I feel like we've covered so much, even just a few minutes, about how business is changing, how IT is changing business. And to me, in a lot of ways, it feels like that's what's happening. It's not so much business is changing IT, but IT is changing how business gets done. At least from my perspective, I think that is fair to say, and it'll be interesting to see where it goes from here. So Ed, I want to thank you so much for being on today and for spending time kind of untangling this complicated era of business IT.
Well, thanks a lot. I've really enjoyed it, Keith.
Thank you.
All right. Well, a big thank you to both Keith and to Ed. Some great information. And hey, I always love a good Simpsons reference. That was awesome, Ed. And I think that was just a great way to kick off our summit here today. And now we are ready to get rolling. And we have a little bit of a test. This is a pop quiz for all of you to see how awake and alert you are. We want to know, what is your time frame for adding new or updating existing IT solutions at your company? Now, today we're talking about the big picture, right? We're talking talking about the big up level idea, the reaching for the stars, the meeting those big goals. So are you thinking that you have to sneak this in before the end of the year? Do you have to make some of these changes in your 2023 budget before you switch into 2024? Or is this long-term planning? Are you looking to make some changes long-term, maybe over the next year or so? There's no wrong answers here, and not sure is a great answer because that means you're just open to the world. You're here for some ideas, and I love that too. So wherever you're at, click on that poll there and let us know. All right, while you guys are doing that, I'm going to give you another couple seconds, and then I'm going to move things right along because it is time to kick off this summit. And I know that you are all pumped up and ready. You've had your morning coffee and you're excited to jump in. So let's do it, my friends. Okay, so kicking off the summit here today, we are definitely starting out on a high note. Our very first presenter is actually a dynamic duo here with us from Strong DM, and that's Michaeline Todd, CMO, and John Martinez, DAM Evangelist. Michaeline, thank you so much for being here with us. John, so excited to hear what you guys have in store. I know there's a lot of information in the wings here, so I'm going to kick this summit off and hand things on over to you. Michaeline, take it away.
Glad to be here talking to you guys today about how to bring more automation or hyper automation to the access management and auditing process. Before we get started, kind of did a quick informal survey yesterday. So on a scale of 1 to 10, we asked a bunch of IT professionals, how much do you enjoy onboarding and offboarding users? And then the second question, how much do you enjoy access audits? And not too surprising, not a lot of joy coming from that process of onboarding and offboarding users. And definitely got skull and crossbones on the access audit piece. So we're going to talk today about how we can maybe make it a little bit more of an enjoyable process, and at the very least, bring some automation so that it's not as painful. So hi there, I'm Michaeline Todd, and I'm the CMO at Strong DM. So as you're starting to think about how you automate or how you should automate access controls and access management for your organization, we've got a couple of tips to kind of keep in mind. First and foremost is you want to make sure that you are automating that whole access lifecycle. So from the minute somebody comes in the door and you need to start onboarding them, all the way until they're offboarded, you need to have all those steps in between automated. And what I mean by that is, as people are changing jobs or changing roles within the organization, working on different projects, you want to make sure that that the things that they have access to is also changing during that time. Because the last thing you want is somebody who's been around for 2 years and maybe has worked on 10 different projects to now all of a sudden have access to a bunch of databases, a bunch of servers and systems that they just don't need access to, and you've got access grants that are kind of sitting there going stale. The next thing is least privilege and zero standing privilege. And I can remember, starting to learn about, cloud 10 years ago, and it was just sort of hammered into us that, everything you need to focus on least privilege and make sure that folks didn't have access to more than what they really needed. But the reality is that actually implementing least privilege when you don't have a very simple automated process is really challenging, especially because you've got so many resources that are coming online, and maybe those roles are just automatically, gaining access to new resources that kind of are part of that role definition. And so I think oftentimes we see that just while companies try or attempt to do least privilege, they're not quite getting it really right. And so I'm really excited about this notion of zero standing privilege. And zero standing privilege, I think, is kind of coming out of zero trust, but really focused on saying, hey, let's make it that, all users across the board have no standing privileges whatsoever until they need it, at which point they go and make a just-in-time access request. They get access to the resources they need. And then as soon as those sessions are closed out, the privileges are gone. The sessions, the grant is kind of poofed. So let's look at what it means to go from standing access to just-in-time access. So what you see on the left-hand side, so you can imagine if you've got a DBA who has standing access to maybe 20 databases, right? So 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, that access is just out there. And so for all that time, in this case, it would be 3,360 hours per week that these access grants are out there, potentially vulnerable to be breached. If instead you move to just-in-time access, meaning the person comes in at 8 o'clock in the morning, they need to go run some query against a database. They make the automated request to get access. They get the access, go in, kind of complete their job, shut it down. You could see where you kind of move to this scenario then where, maybe at most there's only 40 hours of a week of risk, because outside of the time that they're asking for that just-in-time access and that grant exists, like there are no credentials out there. There's no access grant or no permissions out there that anybody could take advantage of. That's almost a 99% reduction in risk. And so if you can imagine, and if you can do this for those users, if you do that across the board, it's a huge de-risking of your organization and your resources. So next up, the next requirement, complete coverage. And, what we see is, we talk to a lot of clients where they say, hey, we've automated access controls or automated access grants for like the most important stuff, but it's just too complicated to go do this for everything in our stack. Or the tools that we're using only help us out with cloud resources, or only help us out with Windows resources. And this definitely poses a big problem. And so you want to make sure that you actually have complete coverage across your entire stack. And I always say no exceptions whatsoever, right? You wouldn't go and leave for vacation, lock your front door and leave your back door and all your windows open. Like, no, you lock all this stuff down because you want to make sure that nobody can get into any entry into your home. And I think the same thing is true then for your tech stack as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Just because it's a developer environment, a staging environment, doesn't mean that you shouldn't have the same level of control and hygiene that you have in production, right? We've seen time and time again over our history, Michaeline, where those dev environments are the ones that are getting attacked, and that's where the problems are coming from. Especially more egregious when you don't know if your developers are, for ease of use, it might be innocent, right? And let me copy a little bit of more realistic data sets in here that may or may not have customer data or PII or something more sensitive like that. And, just so I can run a better test in my dev environment, and all of a sudden that environment's gotten attacked, and, access is there for somebody who shouldn't, and your customer information leaked, right? That's a bad thing to happen.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yep, connect the dots, right?
Yeah, no, that's a great point, right? So I think oftentimes we think about really locking down that access to those crown jewels, but the reality is that it's those dev environments that also pose a huge threat. Last and not least, John, you started hinting at ease of use, and this is really important and something that we feel really strongly about at Strong DM. When you think about ease of use, you have to make sure that whatever process you start building out, that it doesn't negatively disrupt the workflow for developers, for IAM professionals, or for security teams. You can disrupt the workflow by making it like better. That's always good. But I
was just going to dispel the notion that it means that it's frictionless, right? I mean, a little bit of friction is good, right? Because you do want to challenge that access request, right? If it's for something that's a very sensitive workload, or there's a compliance aspect to that workload, right? But you definitely don't want to be in the situation that I described earlier, right? Where the developer, you want to change the thinking anyway, where the developer, the Kubernetes admin or whoever, right, needs access to do their job, but they want to hoard a credential because if I have to open up an IT ticket, that's going to take 3 days, right? So you definitely want to, all of the things we just talked about, the just-in-time access, all of that, deep level security posture that we want to keep doesn't mean, that we have to have a horrible experience for our users, right?
Yeah. Or, or even worse, if you're tired of waiting for somebody to get around to actually giving you a grant, you just slack your buddy or lean over to the next cubicle and ask if you could just use their credentials. And now you actually don't know who did what in your environments, right?
Yep.
So that's definitely not a good thing. So ease of use, super important. And so, I think, this kind of like complex spaghetti craziness is something that I think is very believable. Hopefully you guys all think that as well. But we talk to organizations all the time where the pathways that we're sort of expecting end users to navigate to go from, their desktop to a certain VPN to get to a jump host or bastion hosts before they go jump over into the cloud. And then they have to figure out what role do they assume in order to get access to the thing that's there. Super complicated. And you can imagine new people coming into your organization or even new people joining a team and trying to figure out, okay, how do I connect to that thing, that database? Super complicated, right? And slows people down and just kind of gives them a really bad experience working in your organization. And of course, kind of thinking about the end user here, but for the admins, right, they're also dealing with all of this craziness, all of this complexity. And when it comes time to do audits or investigations, or just to even answer those questions for those end users, how do you get from A to B? It's really confusing and just made to be overly cumbersome, right? And so trying to keep the bad guys out shouldn't also mean that you're also making it so complicated for your internal users that they themselves actually can't get their job done easily. So what we've done and what John's going to show you in a minute is how at StrongDM we've sort of reimagined privilege access so that both end users and administrators and auditors can actually regain control over what's actually happening in those organizations, across all of your infrastructure. And so what you're going to see is, we make it very simple so that the end user has their own personalized directory of things that they have access to. And they don't have to worry about any of that complexity that's happening behind the scenes to make sure that they have a secure and protected pathway to go from their desktop over into that resource, whether it's in the cloud or in the data center. They can also, what John's also going to show you is how easy it is for people to kick off that workflow to request just-in-time access. So you can actually, get the access that you need quickly, whether it's happens automatically or whether it requires some additional approvals. As well, then for the admins, right? They have access to like complete visibility and observability. They can see every keystroke that's taking place during those sessions. They can audit the access grants as well as audit kind of what actions people are taking. All of this helps to ensure that you now get better control of your better control over what's actually happening. You've got better security and then also better compliance. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to John so he can show you a demo.
All right, great points. We're going to reinforce a lot of what Michaeline and I were talking about a little bit earlier with a quick demo on StrongDM's capabilities along those lines. So we have a system here. This is a client system. It could be a developer system, etc. And a user, Emilio Watkins, is logged in and has logged into the StrongDM UI here, the application. So as you can see, Emilio's logged in, has no access to anything yet. We're going to walk through Emilio requesting access to a resource. In this case, we're going to request access to a database. This is a MySQL database. I'm going to jump in over to Slack to show that it's as easy as using the native tools that I use every day. So I'm over here as Emilio. I'm going into the Slack integration that we have. There's an actual bot that is running on my Slack organization. And I'm going to type in the SDM command. And SDM is going to give me visibility into a few things, but mostly I want to see what's available to me. So Emilio needs access to a MySQL database. So I'm going to go look at the catalog. And here we go. Okay, I just need read-only access to the database so that I can validate some tables. So I'm going to go request access to that database. The default 1 hour is okay for me. I should be done by then. But as an admin, and I'll show in a little while that an admin can absolutely revoke access before then. But I'm going to go request an hour. I spoke a little bit earlier about challenging access requests, and this is a required field that I need to go and fill out, and that's the reason. Why do I need access? So validate beta. And it's going to go ahead and run through another one of our features, and this is actually the dynamic access management, the DAM part of what we do. It's been granted to me, and what happened in the background is it ran through one of our dynamic access workflows that we have, and it looked at my request and approved it. So now we should go back into the SDM app, and we should see that we have access to the database. All right. So the next thing I need to do is now connect to the database. I'm connected. I'm going to go ahead and open up a database client. Here I choose Beekeeper. So I have the connection already saved. I'm going to go ahead and go right into the database. And as you can see, I connected right into the database. And I'm going to run this query here so I could see what's in the strong DM table. And there it is. I've got one field there. What I'm going to do now is that I'm going to show the ability for us to terminate a session in real time. We just want to make sure that we are able to disconnect that person from running or having access to that particular database. So I'm going to loop over here, and I have the database query looping here. I'm going to go into, let me refresh the access request. So here's the access request here, the currently approved access. It's active today until 2/16, as you saw, but keep an eye over here on the database client. I'm going to go ahead and revoke access, and it's going to tell me, yeah, go ahead and do it. I don't want that person to be running that query anymore. And right away, immediate disconnect. All right. So, yeah, right. I mean, it's absolutely. And from Emilio's perspective, Emilio used the development tools that he normally runs. There's no special clients to run on Emilio's part, right? So all the tools that he loves to use, he has access to. All right. So poor Emilio got cut off from the database access, but now let's go over into Kubernetes. So let's go back to Slack. And let's go look at that catalog again. Emilio needs to access some commands on the EKS cluster that's running in AWS. So let's go look at the catalog. And let's see, there's no EKS there. There are some AWS accounts there, as you can see, right? So that points to our ability to have a wide list of resource types available to us. And we'll get into that in a little bit. Oh, there it is. This is what I need. I need EKS these credentials. I'm going to go ahead and request access again. Same thing, right? I need to pick a time frame. I need to write a reason for it. Submit. And I've been granted access into that Kubernetes cluster, the EKS cluster. All right, so now I'm here in my PowerShell environment. I'm going to run the kubectl CLI, and I need to do, I need to update my Kubernetes config to be able to use that particular port. But let me show you real quick before, just to double check. Yep, I do have access now to that EKS lease credentials resource. You saw before, the database access has now been removed, right? So it's gone. Again, in reinforcing that just-in-time access requirement that we have in our company, right? We no longer have standing privileges, only when I need it for however long I need it for. So I'm going to update the config so that kubectl can run its commands just happily. All right, I'm good to go there. And let's actually run the kubectl command. So I'm going to go ahead and list all the services that I have available to me. And there it is. I'm able to now connect to that Kubernetes cluster in the backend. So again, native tooling. It's easy for me as a developer to use the things that I need access, that I need to use to access those resources. And I'm going to go back here. I can see that the credentials are there. I'm just going to leave them running. They're going to expire in an hour anyway, so I'm okay with that. So let's take a look at a couple of other things. I've showed you how to terminate access to a resource. And now we're going to take a look at, well, what did Emilio actually do? You're an admin, you're not actually looking on Emilio's screen to see what he's got running there. So I'm going to go into logs here. I'm going to go take a look at, let's go take a look at queries. All right. There's exactly it, right? It's great, right? It's might seem like magic, but it's not magic. I can see all of the queries that Emilio ran on that database. There's Emilio. There's the queries, even to when I did the sleep so that I can disconnect. It's all there. Same thing with Kubernetes. I can go take a look at, hey, Emilio ran kubectl get services. So it's all there. It's all visible to me. And it's not just that, there's certain resource types where I can actually go take a look and I can replay an entire session, and like for SSH and RDP. Same thing for all the different resource types that we support, cloud, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, now let's go and take a look at how easy it is to set up a workflow. We're going to go into workflows. We're going to go in here. We can see all the workflows that we have set up today. I'm going to go in here and say add workflow. I'm going to name it something. And it was very simple to go create. I'm going to look at the different roles that are available to me. Let's go and attach this AE role, but by default, I have to attach a role. The roles have a direct correlation to the resources that have been set up and are available to that role. And I'm going to assign the AE role, and I'm going to make it so that it's an automatic workflow here, so that it's automatically approved. But I can actually also route that approval manually to an admin, right? So in case it's like very sensitive data or a very, very sensitive workflow that I don't need to. I can assign a dynamic rule to that workflow. I can say, let's go in Aurora MySQL. There's 0 there. But you can restrict it to a specific resource type. You can say any resource type of a particular tag. So that's enforcing the actual dynamic aspect of our workflows.
So as new things come in that have that same tag, then they would also be added to that workflow request.
Absolutely. We automatically populate the tag, and it tells me how many resources I have available in that particular tag. And that's really it. We save it, and it's created, we enable it, and the workflow is now enabled. That's how easy it is to have dynamic access management in StrongDM. So I mentioned earlier that it looks like magic. It's really not magic. Here's our high-level architecture of how all of this works. We were looking at a workstation where I've got the StrongDM client installed. I've got all my native developer tools installed there that I'm using. We log in, initialize our sessions. You saw that I connected to both the database and a Kubernetes cluster. And all of that request gets sent to the Strong DM control plane, which then in turn talks to a locally installed gateway where all of that traffic is completely encrypted, completely secured. And how do we know what the credentials are for that particular resource? We do have integrations with Bring Your Vault of Choice. Those are some of the vaults that we support. And that's how we're able to broker the connection between the client, between the vault where your secrets are stored, your credentials are stored, your API keys are stored, and the actual resource on the back end. At no point during that session that you just saw, or those couple of sessions that you just saw, did I have access to any credentials. So zero credential sharing at all to Emilio. So not only is it, yes, it's magic. Not only did Emilio get access to the resources that he needed for the time he needed. And on top of that, from a security perspective, so that's the easy part. That's the ease of use part. From the security perspective, he never saw a credential, and we were able to audit his access completely.
That's great. Strong DM also has a vault that's native to the product as well, but we know that everybody's got, all their vaults of choice. And so we want to make sure that we're supporting that for you. So just to wrap up, as you're thinking about automating access management, just a couple of things to think about. You want to make sure that you're tying your access to your IDP so that as new people come in, right, their access automatically starts getting provisioned. As they leave the company, all of that automatically gets turned off. You also want to make sure that you're managing that access throughout that whole life cycle so that you're building automation so that as people are changing roles, that their access grants are also changing. Although ideally, I guess, if you move to zero standing privilege, you don't have to worry about that so much. Except of course, as the roles changed, maybe the automated approvals would change as they're making requests. Again, you want to make it so that requesting access or being able to even see what your catalog of resources are, that also is really easy and is actually embedded in the things that people are using day in and day out. So whatever's, chat ops tools you're using, that's super simple. And then for the admins, you want to make sure that there's complete visibility of all those actions. The last thing you want to do is be trolling through logs to try to do an investigation, figure out who did what. You want this to be super drop dead simple. And then finally, adding when new resources get added, right? You've got new clusters coming online or new databases, new servers. You want to make sure that, adding all those resources or heck, even new resource types doesn't require a professional services, engagement in order to get those pulled in to be managed by your access management system. That also needs to be automated and super simple, just to ensure that you are able to secure everything that's actually in your environment. And then finally, if you're interested in getting started, there's a link to start up a free trial, and you can be up and running in just minutes. So thank you very much, and we look forward to seeing you again.
Oh, thank you so much, Michael and John, for that awesome presentation. So much good information. And John, I love the demo. I always say this, but it's so great when we get to have a little bit of that why and the storytelling, the understanding, and then dive in and actually see things in action. So best of both worlds today, which is a great way to start out our summit. All right, so now you can see that I have something up on the screen for all of you here. And, we've always called this a poll, but I've been switching it up a little bit lately and reframing it more towards a wish list or a shopping list, because really what it is letting the team know, letting Strong DM know what information would be helpful for you. And this prevents you from having to dig through a bunch of, websites or links or Google things. And instead, Strong DM is just going to hand you exactly what you need. So do you need case studies? Do you need some white papers? Would you rather get your hands into a demo or a free trial or whatever the case may be? whatever it is that's helpful for you, however you learn and carry information back to your team, you can click on this little wish list right here, and then Strong DM will make sure you have the resources you need. All right, so I'm going to leave that up on the screen for you here so you guys can take a little time to click on that. I will also remind you to head on over to the handouts tab. Make sure you follow that Strong DM link to start that free trial. So speaking of a free trial, again, this is the best way to get familiar with a new idea, right? With something that you haven't spent some time with, get in the sandbox and start playing. So click on that handout link, get into the Strong DM link, and make sure that you save that tab, open that tab, hold on to that for now, because you're going to want to come back to that after we've wrapped up the summit today. All right, so I've just given you a couple pieces of homework, the handouts tab and your wish list there. While you are doing that, I am going to get into some prize giveaways. So for our very first prize giveaway, we are going to do a $300 Amazon gift card, and then we're going to give away 3 of those home pods. All right, now I will remind you again that you do need to be here live and present at the summit, but where else would you want to be on this lovely Thursday morning, right? So if you are here live and present, you meet those T's and C's, you may be winning a prize today. So our $300 Amazon gift card going to Manav Mittal of Michigan. Manav Mittal, that is the most alliterative prize winner I have seen yet. Manav Mittal of Michigan, you have won a $300 Amazon gift card. Congratulations. And then we've got a couple of home pods going to Thomas Lamb of California, Phil Harris of Texas, and Alejandra Briano of California. I'm going to read that again. Thomas Lamb of California, Phil Harris of Texas, and Alejandra Briano of California. Congratulations. You all live in nice, warm, sunny places. I'm jealous. And now you also have a home pod. So bonus jealous. Well done, folks. All right. Well, as always, we will be in touch about claiming your prize after we wrap up the summit today. Now, don't forget, there's still a few more chances to win. Plus, we have that best question gift card coming at you from each session. And a reminder that we look at all the questions asked after we wrap. So even if we don't get to your question during a live session, you are still entered to win just by asking that question. So keep those coming in. All right, well, my friends, we have lots more to do in this summit, so I'm going to keep things moving right along. And actually, I'm going to hand things right on back to you, Melissa, to introduce our next awesome speaker. All yours.
Thank you so much, Jess. I am so excited to introduce you to our next presenter in today's virtual summit. And believe me, this team always has something cool going on. Thank you so much. Warm welcome to Brandon Allman, who's a sales engineer at Rubrik. Brandon, like I said, I'm so excited to welcome you back to the summit today. And I know you have some great stuff lined up for us today. And Jess, I think you're going to even be joining Brandon to get into some of the audience questions at the end. So we have so much to do. Take it away, Brandon.
I appreciate it. Hopefully everybody can hear me. I had a little audio trouble to start out, so everything should be back to normal. So what we're going to be talking about today is backup does not equal cyber resilience. This is kind of a new paradigm in what we're dealing with in our cyber realm. And so I'm going to cover pretty broadly what kind of backups look like and how they impact your environment. So let's just kick it right off with my content slide. So really the question we're asking our customers is, can you recover from a cyber attack within 24 hours? This is a very important question because largely if it's beyond 24 hours, you start to get into those things where the news starts to notice, your customers start to notice, lots of things start to happen. The financial impact starts to become pretty extreme. In-day recoveries, you can usually keep a lot of that business from being too impactful, but after 24 hours, it starts to get pretty extreme. So when you look at the ecosystem of what you have in your data center, you've got all of these things. So you've got your perimeter, your network, your endpoints, all of these things, but the backup is really a last piece. And backup and DR are historically something that has been there to recover from lost files, somebody's deleted something, we've got corrupt, small pieces, but in a disaster, in a cybersecurity event, it's a completely different scenario. Most likely all of these pieces are going to be compromised, your perimeter down through your apps and data, and your last resort is going to be that backup. So can you recover in 24 hours with Rubrik? The answer is yes, and we're going to describe the difference between how we bring that timeline down to that 24-hour mark. We start that out by doing consolidation of your backup silos, and this reduces risk. Largely what we're dealing with is change, a transition to that hybrid model. We're talking cloud today, we're talking endpoints today. We have things across multiple workloads, and we need to really manage those centrally. And so we'll start out with that kind of basic, what we're all dealing with, that physical stack that lives in your data center, the VMs, the databases, things that are your traditional data centers. But we're adding on a lot more things here. So now we have a large workload, so NAS pieces that can get up into the petabyte scale that don't traditionally make sense using a standard backup. So they wind up getting pushed to the cloud or pushing to different locations. So we're starting to see how we could easily silo our data protection, our cybersecurity recovery methodology by already having 2 silos. But now, and COVID really pushed this forward, that transition to O365 to those SaaS offerings, those cloud pieces that are managed. So now we've got 3 silos, and then to add it all off, those cloud traditional things, cloud native workloads, things that were running in the cloud. And most of our customers are dealing with all of these. And the legacy backups were keeping these into individual silos. Well, with the Rubrik product, we have introduced the Rubrik Security Cloud. It is truly a single interface management console. It's not going to pop out a separate HTML5 that actually is going to a different management. This type of consolidation reduces management overhead by up to 90%. And it's a big deal when you're talking about operational efficiencies, but also in reducing that risk from a cyber attack, because a lot of what you deal with in these instances is that disparate nature of all of the pieces that you're protecting. And since they're not all the same, those are when the mistakes are made, and that's how the bad actors are able to exploit your infrastructure. So by consolidating everything into a single management interface, which includes cloud workloads, it includes those on-prem, we're able to provide those efficiencies, which gives you things like role-based access control in a central location, MFA in a central location. I'm not having to secure down multiple instances of a product or multiple components of a product with different controls. I can do it all in a central nature. And so how do we do it here at Rubrik? We start out with that single pane of glass, all of that MFA, and then we layer that on to give you that cyber resilience, which is beyond just backup. And so we're going to start with a Rubrik Data Vault. On-prem, we're going to have you an isolated, immutable copy of your data. Now, why do we do an on-prem? I know there's a lot of transition to cloud. We start with the on-prem because of the need to ensure that we have a quick recoverable copy. When we're talking about multi-terabytes of scale and needing to recover those all in a single day, the ability to recover those from cloud isn't always capable when we're talking about these large scales. So having a true immutable copy on-prem next to your infrastructure, we're going to provide those RPO and RTOs that are required for your business to recover. The next thing we do is we add on things like the ability to send copies out to other sources. So we keep that operational copy local, and now we can stream out copies to multiple clouds. We can send it to a cloud that you manage. Some of the mechanisms we're dealing with is what kind of cloud. We can use object store. That includes things like our cloud copies. So if you look across the stack, we can directly send the Rubrik Data Vault copies out to clouds. We can actually send our NAS directly to cloud. But we're also able to leverage things in O365 and SharePoint and move them to other cloud infrastructures that are managed by Rubrik. So we're defeating some of those problems with tenant takeovers and that shared responsibility model with Microsoft to ensure that your data is protected properly. And then finally, some of the new modern workloads like ECS, RDS, those cloud VMs that are a little bit more difficult to protect, we're doing those differently. We're actually leveraging a streaming backup. We're not spinning up the traditional versions of our software that require compute. We're actually just streaming them directly to an object store, which increases efficiencies and also gives you the ability to manage that cost profile a lot better because you're not dealing with that compute and RAM. On top of that, we improve the performance of the traditional backups that are part of the native hyperscalers by giving you the ability to move across tenants and across accounts. So as your footprint grows in those cloud infrastructures, you're able to leverage them, and the Rubrik just becomes more important of a product line in that cloud infrastructure. So we'll have questions at the end. Normally, I would stop here and talk about how this matters in your infrastructure, but we'll save all of our questions for the end. But this is how Rubrik takes that traditional legacy backup, consolidates it into one product, and makes it flexible so that you're managing your data and not having disparate clouds and disparate locations. We're centralizing all of that control for your data protection. So let's start with the core of our product. We start out with the Rubrik Data Vault. You may already have some of this infrastructure in place that looks similar, but the differentiator here is how we put that together. So our product is a physical appliance. It's a converged backup, dedupe, storage, and vault all in one. It's separate from your VMware infrastructure so that there's no issue with your VMware going down and us not being able to do recoveries. So that's incredibly important that it's separate from your VM infrastructure. So like I mentioned, we're physically isolated. So we're survivable from that attack. So there's nothing in the hypervisor that we're going to have to deal with. So one of the traditional problems we're dealing with now is the transition from the guest attacks into the VMware attacks. They're actually starting to penetrate the hypervisors and do their damage there. And if you're leveraging the hypervisor for some of your data protection infrastructure, proxies, or software running on a VM, you're probably going to have to do recoveries of that catalog, of that VM, before you even do recoveries of your data. And that could add on hours, if not days, to your recovery process because you have to build out your recovery infrastructure before you can start to recover. We are built on a hardened Linux repository, which means no Windows. Almost 100% of the time, if your environment is compromised, everything that's Windows is compromised. What that means is no downtime. That hardened Linux kernel is a customized kernel so that you are ensuring that you're able to recover. So we're separate from your infrastructure with all that MFA, that role-based access, and the isolation from your VMware infrastructure, your Hyper-V infrastructure, whatever hypervisor you're using. We will be separate, and so we'll ensure that that recovery infrastructure is up and running the minute you need it. So we're also a scale-out architecture. We're not that traditional small head add-on storage, which can be problematic when you get to large scales. We have multiple node architecture, so which means as you grow, your capabilities grow with you. That means the bigger your infrastructure gets, the more streams you can do, the more backups you can do. It also is masterless. We're node based, so that's rolling upgrades. That's no impact during upgrades, so no downtime to do upgrades. You're only as strong as your last upgrade when we're dealing with these infrastructures that have constant security patches. So we're very, very powerful in that terms. Everything we do is encrypted by default. It's not something you can turn off in our infrastructure. And that's a pretty powerful thing. A lot of the products out there do have encryption, but they are something that can be turned on and off. If you can turn it off, bad actors can probably turn it off as well. So we've decided that things like MFA and encryption are just on by default. Can't turn them off. That ensures that if your infrastructure is compromised, that we're still able to give you that recovery capabilities. We are air-gapped, so our OS shell storage is not accessible from the network. So there's no NFS, there's no SMB. We use a data broker movement, so you can't even see the file system if you have full admin rights to the operating system. And that's pretty important. One of the number one ways that infrastructure is attacked is the backups are attacked first, and they're looking for those traditional protocols, and they're looking to exploit those maybe through a 0-day or an unpatched vulnerability. And then once those backups are compromised, they hit your production infrastructure. So that air gap on our first copy not only ensures your backups are recoverable right next to your infrastructure, but it reduces your cost of ownership because you don't have to have 3-4 copies of your data to ensure a cyber recovery. As I mentioned before, we are immutable. We are 100% of backups cannot be modified or encrypted, and this is largely due to that hardened Linux that's custom. We are an append-only file system, so we do not allow modifications of existing backups. So that's pretty powerful in terms of ensuring that the data is going to be exactly what it's supposed to be when you recover. You can't even get in and encrypt our data in our box. It's already encrypted, and that feature, since it's append-only, will not allow you to do a double encryption event. We are secured by default. We follow that zero trust model. So we have mandatory MFA. We have local users with time-based one-time passwords where you, for your break glass issue where you need to get into the rubric and shut everything down, you can scan a QR code. It brings up that one-time security. And then retention lock with NTP protection. So there is an attack out there where NTP can be poisoned. We follow a monotonic clock so that we are ensuring that everything that we do is assuming a breach and that we don't trust anybody but ourselves. And that allows us to make sure your backups are completely capable to be recovered. And then really that's all of the things we've talked about is really about data protection in the kind of classic sense from a recovery perspective. We do it a little bit better. We ensure they're there. This is the cyber resiliency. But now the next generation is how do I find out how to do those recoveries? So we do have built-in scanners. They're on the box. It's not a third party. It's not something you have to add on. These built-in scanners ensure that your first copy is scanned. And then as we scale out that box, we scale out performance. This drastically reduces your RPO and RTO because we can tell you exactly where the penetration were and where the recovery points are. So when you're looking at the blast radius, you can come to rubric, especially when your primary infrastructure may not be accessible. You may have endpoint monitors, you may have some things that are all incredibly important, but if you're going through a significant breach, they may not be available. The fact that we're going to provide some of that infrastructure capability built into our product, including the scanners, is going to give you a power that's going to reduce that RPO and RTO significantly based on some of the historical capabilities that we would have to do. The recover the VM, to scan it, is it good or bad? Oh, it's not. I have to go back in time. So we're going to do all that on box. You don't have to inflate the copy. You don't have to undedupe it or anything like that. It's built into the Data Vault architecture. So this is going to ensure you have those recoveries. So that is our architecture. That's that Data Vault cluster. So when you have the bad day, we're going to recover in hours, not days. So how do we do it? So we do it with that air gap. We do it by locking the file system. 100% recoverable RTO in less than 24 hours. So that's pretty powerful. So why the backup isn't cyber resilience? And I'm going to go through this pretty quickly. I know that there's I'm saying a lot, but I want to make sure we have enough time for Q&A. And so what we see, this is the anatomy of an attack. This is how we've deconstructed what's going on. So they get access to your data. Mandiant's recent publication is saying they're in dwell time about 5 days. It's reduced from about 200. This has a lot to do with how we're better at our tooling and everybody's better at scanning. So they have to be a little bit faster on their attack. But maybe they're not just looking to encrypt. Maybe they're looking for data exfiltration. So knowing what your data looks like and what your personally identifiable information looks like is more important than ever. So they're not just encrypting data and sending you a Bitcoin address to send them money. They're actually going to say, hey, we stole a bunch of credit cards or social security numbers, and if you don't pay us money, we're going to send it off to the dark web. And then, of course, you have to pay AG fees and things like that. And so that is part of the problem. And so in most attacks, once they trigger it off, they've been in there 5 days, they've stolen a bunch of your important data. They'll do a VM level attack, which means not the guest at the VM within the hypervisor. And usually within 5 hours, 60% of your infrastructure is encrypted. So these happen fast. And a lot of times before you know it, you're 60% done and you're in a bad way. And so everything's down. So the clock matters. So those ability to recover quickly is incredibly important. So your business impact cost is increasing because they're getting in there, they're encrypting quickly. So you need to know what, when, where, and how they are impacting your environment. So that's where Rubric comes to the rescue. So we ask these questions. Is your infrastructure 100% immutable? We are at Rubric. That's important to ask. How do you know what was encrypted if you don't have your production infrastructure up and running? So if I can't look at anything and my VMware host is down, I don't know what is and what isn't. So the ability to look in the Rubric product and see that is pretty important. What was stolen? So that's the sensitive data. On the first pass, what was at risk? We can provide information on what they had access to so that you know what your risk level in that blast radius is. And then when to recover to. What time in the past do I need to use for my recovery point? If my infrastructure is completely down and my backups are compromised, or they encrypted my backups, or I have to rebuild my catalog, that might take hours. We're going to give you that in minutes with that scanning tool that's built in. And then how long will it take? That goes partly to that recovering your backup infrastructure. If you have to recover your catalog, recover your backup VMs before you can actually start recovering your data, that may double or triple the time to get your recoveries up and running. So that's largely why backup is not equal to cyber resiliency. We do all of this, and this is what we consider cyber resiliency. So you have to ask yourself, you may have a piece of this, you may have some immutability, but is it truly immutable? You may be able to do some sensitive data exfiltration, but maybe it's only 40% of your infrastructure because the product you're using is incredibly expensive, so we only do it for our mission critical data. How would we do a clean room recovery? And then do we know how far back in time with the tools we have we could go? And we can all do that with our Rubrik cyber resiliency. This is done through the Data Vault, 100% immutable. This is a little bit of a review, but our first product is immutable, physically isolated, built-in scanners, and it's scale out. We have a dual machine learning model that can scan for encryption. We do that on the first copy and alerts within 15 minutes of getting that copy. We also integrate, because we are doing that first copy and we're API driven, you can integrate that into your own management tools. We have a sensitive data discovery tool that is looking for that PII data on that first scan as well. It is a policy-based product that we have canned products, so you don't have to create your own, but we have the ability to extend those if you need to. So if you need to extend those, we can do that as well. We also move beyond just looking at what's encrypted and what data was possibly exfiltrated, but we can do an IOC scan. So we can live scan deep into your infrastructure and quarantine things that have been left behind to do malicious damage. So that ensures that not only is your data recoverable, but that you're not reinfected or you can't reintroduce threats in the future. Something like 60 or 70% of our customers that have had an attack that did not do mitigation in their past or did not have the ability to scan for threats within their infrastructure get hit again within 6 months. So having the ability to take indicators of compromise from your infrastructure vendors and put them into our tool and make sure that you know all of the possible attack points that they've left behind and quarantine those so they're not recovered through your backups, very powerful. And so all of this is great, but we add on one more layer, which is the ability to do this through an automated workflow. So we've got that bunker. We can tell you what's been stolen. We can tell you where the recover points are. We can tell you what's been left behind. Now we can actually put all of that together. We can decide which VMs and which order to recover and provide an automated workflow for that. So we can provide runbook type recoveries with post scripts so that it's one button recoveries, so that your recoveries, once you've made all of these determinations on which VM to recover and what point in time we want to go to, that we can do that automated so that it happens in an orderly fashion. All of this on top of that central UI with the automated efficiencies is a pretty powerful tool for you to make sure those recoveries are successful in your infrastructure. I think I'm running a little ahead of time here, so hopefully we have a good time check. The last thing I'm going to cover beyond that is what we do as a company that is beyond just providing a great product, providing that vault, providing that recover capability. Part of every customer that we have, and we think this is important, is a ransomware response team. Most of the time, once you go through a ransomware, it's the first time. It can be incredibly daunting to deal with all of the impacts. You walk in, you've got this black screen with the Bitcoin address, or you get an email, your management tool. It's the middle of the night. It's probably a Friday night or a Saturday morning, and you need to get your ducks in a row. And sometimes it can be incredibly overwhelming. Part of the Rubrik product is access to the ransomware response team. It doesn't matter what level of the product you purchase. If it's just M365, if it's the on-prem, if it's the cloud native, you'll have access to this team. Immediately after making a call into our support line, you'll get access to this team, and they will jump on the call and start doing all of the best practice recommendations, essentially a consulting service for you to ensure that your backups are recoverable in the best way possible. You're going to have those immutable copies, but we want to get in there and make sure that they're not adding anything in the infrastructure that could effectively cause problems. So things like stopping current backups to make sure they're not introducing additional data into your thing. Part of that append-only file system allows us to sometimes go back in time even further than your policies identify. So lots of nice things that this team brings to the table. They are 24/7, 365, and they have been doing this for a good amount of time. So we've had hundreds of customers leverage this team in helping them recover. The added value of this is we get closer representation with our customers, but we learn from these events. So every time we have a ransomware response team engagement, they understand a little bit better about what's going on in the infrastructure, in the ecosystem. They know the tactics. They learn more about the tactics. That allows us to improve our tools. So we get better at that ransomware investigations. We get better at that sensitive data discover. We get better at that workflow migration where we allow that workflow because we're in the trenches with you doing the recoveries real time with our customers, which is an incredible value add for our customers, but for us as well. It allows us to understand the infrastructure and the ecosystem that the bad actors are using, and that's pretty important. So I think I might be 5 minutes ahead, but that's all I have here today. So any questions? I think we have some questions in the bottom. So I'll hand it back to the team.
Thank you so much. We do have some great questions coming in. We're actually right up against time, but we're going to sneak in a question. It's so funny how fast
5 minutes over then.
things fly by, honestly, and there's obviously so much to cover. And I'm going to try to consolidate a few questions, and there's going to be a lot that we won't get to.
Sure.
But there was a few questions kind of clarifying. You mentioned some of the customization. You said there's, in terms of dealing with sensitive data, there's a lot that just comes ready to go, but that there's options for people to kind of make it fit what they need. And there was a few people that were asking about, privacy and making sure that only the right people are seeing data and access, and then also compliance issues, either industry or country to country. I'm just wondering if you can kind of speak to some of the customization that might help with some of those concerns.
Sure. So we're scanning your data on the Rubrik data vault, so nothing leaves the data vault, and then we're providing you reports on what we're seeing. So if you're searching for social security numbers, we'll show you where those numbers are and what accounts have access to them, so you can see if it's all users, if it's an admin account, and that allows you a visibility to ensure that those are locked down properly. That's the number one thing we get with that tool, and it is a temporal in nature tool, so it is over time, so it helps you find those points before something happens. And then if you do have a breach, you can go find that point in time and look over your whole infrastructure and identify if you had any risk levels. So we are looking at whatever you define is important to you. We can do regular expressions, we can do dictionary looks. So pretty nice, powerful tool there to give you that visibility. And it's across everything we back up. So all of the on-prem stuff, we can do it with SharePoint, which is a little bit more expansive than some of those tools out there. And it's a lot more cost effective because we're doing it on the backup infrastructure.
Amazing. Well, Brendan, like I said, I wish we could keep going. We are going to have to leave it there. If you have a little time on live chat, there are some questions here for you. And either way, for everyone out there, so that you know, if we don't get back to you either in the live sessions today or over live chat, you will get responses back over email. We're going to make sure that the teams here with us get all the questions you ask, so you'll get some answers. So please do keep those questions coming in. Brandon, before you leave us, if somebody wants to get excited, they're already excited. If somebody wants to get started with Rubrik and kind of get this conversation going, what do you recommend as that first step?
Just go to Rubrik.com. It should have a pop-up that'll ask you if you need more help, or if you have partners in your area that you work with. We are a partner first company, so find your partner, ask them about us, and they'll get your rep on the call.
Awesome. All right. Well, Brandon, I want to thank you again for being here with us today. You got a lot of high fives from the audience. I know you really resonated with all of them, so we appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you again so much, Brandon, for that awesome presentation. So much great info, and thank you so much for sticking around to get some questions in with Jess. Now, everybody can see that I've put up Jess's kind of poll/menu here, and what we really want to know is, what do you need to kind of move forward and get more information you need? So Rubrik is just going to kind of give you exactly what you want. I know some of you out there are probably really hands-on and either want to try it or want a personal demo, put that in there. Some of you might be a little more familiar and really just want to get down into the nitty-gritty with white papers or case studies. don't worry, the team at Rubrik absolutely has you covered for whatever you need. So please take a couple moments and let the team know what you're looking forward to learn about more about the Rubrik solution. Okay, so check that out. And in the meantime, we have some more really, really great prizes to give away. So first, let's start with our second $300 gift card. So I want to give a huge congratulations to Shannon Kennedy from Texas. Congratulations. A quick reminder that you all must be present at the webinar today to win, but like Jess says, where else would you be? So that $300 gift card goes to Shannon Kennedy. And now the next giveaways are the Kindle Scribes, which I think are some of the coolest things out there. So let's see who our lucky winners are. First, we have Claudia Avalos from Texas. Congratulations on your Kindle Scribe. We have Johnny Zhang from Minnesota. Congratulations. And Loris Bays from California. Congratulations to all of you on winning a Kindle Scribe. As always, we are going to be in touch with you about claiming your prize after the webinar. And don't forget, there are still lots of chances to win a prize today. And don't forget that best question gift card from each session. So keep those questions going as the day rolls on. So for now, let's keep zipping along here and let's give a very warm welcome to our next presenter at today's virtual summit. We actually have another dream team here with us to close it out for us. We have Corey Sewell, a cloud sales specialist at TierPoint, and Derek Townsend, a cloud solutions architect at TierPoint. And Corey and Derek, I just want to say thank you again so much for being here to help us wrap up this awesome summit today. And I know you have some great content to dig into, so the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Corey Sewell and I'm joined by my colleague Derek Townsend. We're from TierPoint and we are very excited to talk to you today about modernizing and innovating in the cloud. We are not a software or a tool provider, so we don't have a magic wand that's going to help you innovate, but we think that a modern cloud environment is going to facilitate innovation for your organizations. And we are going to talk to you about some different ways that a service provider like TierPoint can help you do that. It's a key outcome that we're focused on with our partnership with all of our clients, and we can do that through a few different approaches. A little bit about your presenters today. Derek Townsend, who's going to be sharing a little later, is a cloud solutions architect here at TierPoint, and he's got over 23 years of experience. He really brings a world of knowledge around AWS and Azure, and we're happy to have him. My name's Corey Sewell. I'm a cloud solutions specialist at TierPoint, and I have over 14 years of experience. And I still remember the very first web server that I spun up on EC2 back in 2009. Of course, since then, a lot of things have changed in the cloud landscape, and there's more available to you than just compute and storage, and we're going to go over some of those things today. So, quick agenda for today. We're going to talk about the difference between infrastructure as a service and platform as a service. We're also going to talk about the optimization of cost in the cloud. It's important that we all make the most of the budgets that we're given, and we're going to talk about how we help customers to do that. And then we're going to shift gears a little bit. We're going to talk about resiliency for modern workloads, which of course includes things like disaster recovery and high availability. And then we're going to kind of close out today's session with some discussion around containerization and the benefits for doing containers. So who is TierPoint? Well, we like to consider ourselves strategic partners with every single one of our customers. We really are a cloud-first company. We do offer a full suite of consulting and managed services around hosted private cloud, multi-tenant cloud, and co-location, as well as the Microsoft Azure and Amazon AWS platforms. We really do pride ourselves on helping our customers understand what their goals are, helping them to reach those goals, and we do that in a variety of different ways. When we talk about modernization in the cloud, it's really important that we, as the service provider, understand where each and every one of our customers are at in their cloud journey. We really do try to meet each and every one of them where they are. Our intent as a strategic partner is to really understand the outcomes that you're trying to solve for, And then we're going to take this iterative approach with you. We realize that the buyer journey has changed. We no longer just, show up and execute an order and then kind of go on our way. We realize that you are trying to solve for actual problems, and it's an iterative approach that we take with you. Part of this process, and one that is really important to get right, is defining what the goals are, understanding what the outcomes that we're trying to achieve. And then when we move into phase 2 and 3, it's really important that we get these two right. We're going to take a look at each workload. We're going to understand what is appropriate and ready for modernization and transformation and what maybe isn't. Whether it's from a business standpoint or a technical standpoint, we want to make sure and nail down those details just right. Let's narrow in on that just a little bit further. When we talk about the transformation journey on our way to become more cloud native, we like to take what we call a workload-focused approach. It really is critical that we look at each individual workload and understand what is going to go into this modernization effort. What amount of refactoring is involved? What is the value that I'm going to get from doing it? How much is it going to cost? For example, if I have a SQL server that's currently running on a VM, maybe I'm interested in some of the benefits that I'll get from a platform as a service offering like SQL Managed Instance or Azure SQL Database. There's a different amount of refactoring of the database that's going to go into each one of these options. We'd like to take a consultative approach and really help our customers understand whether it makes sense from a business or a technical standpoint to go through this transformation process. And we do that on a workload by workload basis. So let's just touch very briefly on the difference between infrastructure and platform as a service. This is a pretty popular image. It comes to us from Red Hat, and it really does a good job showing the delineation of responsibility across these different scenarios. But with infrastructure as a service, it's a scalable option that definitely does give businesses greater flexibility than a traditional on-site solution. And the cloud provider is going to give you access to resources required to run a specific workload. With platform as a service, the cloud provider is going to manage even more of the stack. So you actually, in this scenario, wouldn't even have access to an operating system. The advantage here is it's going to allow your team to focus more on kind of the critical parts, which would be the data and the application layers. Oftentimes, a platform as a service is going to be a much cheaper option than running it in an infrastructure as a service model. And so when we talk about the optimization of cloud resources, it really does make sense to kind of bring up platform as a service as an alternative option to the IaaS scenario. We can't talk about cloud optimization without talking about cost optimization. Everybody knows that cloud costs are just constantly shifting. The decision making is often very decentralized in large organizations, and it really does make for a situation where visibility into the expenses can be quite difficult. The elasticity and rapid scalability of the cloud is, of course, one of its core strengths, but it does also make it easy for IT staff to spin up services without considering the cost. And so implementing a cloud cost management strategy can help an organization plan for future costs and understand what their current consumption is about and what's going on there. TierPoint examines cost optimization at both a contractual and a technical level. Contractual optimization is using things like savings plans and reservations in order to lock in lower consumption rates. Oftentimes, these come with additional commitments from the customer. But technical optimization really requires deeper changes to the resources. And this is kind of what when we're talking about modernization, this is what we're talking about. But it is also talking about looking at the environment, and this can include everything from like resizing servers to fundamental changes to applications. We like to focus on low impact changes as part of our initial optimization recommendations, and then kind of go from there. I wanted to share a quick example of a current customer of ours that is going through a cost optimization exercise with us. Here you can see we've used some tools to estimate the resizing opportunities based on the actual utilization of resources. And so we're helping this customer to build an action plan for how to reduce their spend over time. In this particular example, the customer had over 600 different virtual machines that really could benefit from some resizing. If all of the machines were resized, we could save this customer over $120,000 a month in cloud spend. Pretty significant if you ask me. So now we're going to shift gears a little bit. I'm going to hand it over to Derek. Derek?
Thank you, Corey. Hello, everyone. My name is Derek Townsend, and I am a cloud solutions architect with TierPoint. Now we're going to be discussing disaster recovery in the cloud. Disaster recovery is the process by which an organization anticipates and addresses technology-related disasters. Systems supporting their applications can go down unexpectedly due to unforeseen circumstances, such as natural disasters, outages, and security issues. How does a company protect itself from such unfortunate events? In the public cloud, there are multiple options available for this, including different geographic regions, disaster recovery as a service, converting physical servers to virtual where possible, and backups. The first item that we're going to touch on is different physical locations, which are essentially disparate geographic regions provided by each public cloud hyperscaler. Each region is a separate geographic area, and within that region, there are multiple availability zones, which we'll touch on later. In each region, data can be configured to replicate live data between data stores. This protects against disasters at the primary data center location. Functionality for services like DNS and databases allow for active-active configurations to be employed, which then serves to allow for maximum protection against a disaster. Public cloud services also are not available in every region, so some regions are paired to allow failover to occur for some of the services that have these failover capabilities, which are provided in the primary region. The next item that we're going to cover is disaster recovery as a service, and hyperscalers like Amazon and Microsoft offer their own disaster recovery as a service options, such as Elastic DR for AWS and Azure Site Recovery. Additionally, third-party tools exist like Zerto that can work across multiple cloud environments. This diagram is an example of Azure Site Recovery, where a deployment was made in an on-premises data center, and the data itself is being replicated to Azure. The disk level replication occurs to a blob storage account, and in the event of a failover, then the VMs would be created that are the target VM servers for the source VMs in the primary site. So essentially, this helps to lower cost as well, because the only resources that are existing during the replication phase are the disks, and then in the event of a failover, the VM itself would be created. The next item we're going to be covering is virtualization, or converting physical servers to virtual where possible, because this provides both cost optimization and disaster recovery capabilities. And as you can see in the drawing in front of you, the AWS Server Migration Service is deploying a tool into a corporate data center. The data from that data center is then being copied back to the AWS environment. The AWS VM export and import service then can generate images based on those servers that are on premises today And then from there, those images can be utilized in CloudFormation templates to deploy servers into AWS target accounts. This saves money due to the non-reliance on a bare metal server, and also provides disaster recovery due to being able to deploy the server across multiple availability groups or regions. Cloud backup is a strategy for sending copies of files or databases to secondary offsite locations for preservation in case of a disaster at the primary data center location. In this diagram, we have Azure Backup taking backups of files, folders, and servers, utilizing the backup agent on premises, transferring that to Azure utilizing the Azure Backup service, and then storing that information in Azure Recovery Services Vault and blob storage. Once a recovery was needed, then those files could be taken out of the storage and restored either in Azure or on premises as needed. And now we're going to be pivoting to the discussion of high availability in the cloud. High availability is a system's ability to function even if one or more components begin to fail. High availability concepts work to provide continuous operability of systems for long periods of time. Auto-scaling is a cloud computing feature that enables organizations to scale cloud services, such as server capacities or virtual machines, up or down automatically, based on defined situations such as traffic or utilization levels. And as you can see in this diagram, CloudWatch will be used on the Amazon side to generate alarms for the auto-scaling group. Whenever a high CPU alert occurs, the scale out of the auto-scaling group occurs where an additional virtual machine is added. On the flip side, we would have an alarm trigger whenever low CPU is hit on any of those machines, and a scale-in event would occur in the auto-scaling group where a virtual machine is removed. Availability zones are distinct locations within a region that are engineered to be isolated from failures in other availability zones. Availability zones themselves are self-sufficient data centers with redundant power, networking, and cooling. Deploying your application across several availability zones can protect applications and provide resiliency in case failures occur at the primary location. Database as a service options are high availability solutions designed to ensure that committed data is never lost due to failures, that maintenance operations do not affect workloads, and that the database itself will not be a single point of failure in the software architecture. As you can see on the left, we have configurations for AWS RDS, and on the right, we have configurations for Azure. As you can see, these different services provide high availability solutions for databases, and this includes MySQL, MariaDB, SQL Server, and Oracle. The last topic that I would like to discuss is containerization. Containers provide a standard way to package application code, configurations, and dependencies into a single object. Containers share an operating system with the host virtual machine, or it can be ran as a service in public cloud services such as Azure Container Instances or Elastic Kubernetes Service. Containers run as resource-isolated processes, ensuring quick, reliable, and consistent deployments regardless of the target environment. Some of the advantages of containers include portability. Application containers create an executable software package which is abstracted from the host operating system. It is not dependent upon or tied to the host OS, making it portable and allowing it to run consistently across cloud platforms. Speed. Containers are lightweight because they share the host machine's OS kernel and are not subject to the additional overhead. This feature drives higher server efficiencies and reduces server and licensing costs. Scalability. The scaling of pods and nodes within clusters or services for container hosting can be automated to scale in and out depending on demand. And finally, fault isolation. Containerizing an application isolates it and allows it to operate independently of others. Therefore, the failure of one container does not affect the operation of the others. I would now like to transfer the presentation back over to Corey.
All right, thank you for that, Derek. In closing, there are just a ton of different options available to you when it comes to the modernization of your workloads in the cloud. Most of them offer benefits like built-in high availability, built-in security features, an ease in management and things like that. But they pretty much all offer enhanced compatibility. When you modernize legacy applications, you're really increasing your compatibility with other technologies and code. This enables organizations to seamlessly integrate applications, and it really does help them to become better positioned to meet future business needs. We at TierPoint would love to help you navigate this vast landscape. We thank you for the time today. Please reach out with any questions, and we'll all talk to you soon. Thanks.
Thank you all for joining today. We hope you found this presentation helpful. If you would like to speak to someone about your cloud needs, you can reach us at www.tierpoint.com or sales@tierpoint.com. We have also listed our phone number on this slide as well. Thank you again and have a good day.
And a thank you to you both, Derek and Corey, for that awesome presentation. I just want to point out that I have our poll back for you all. We would love to get your feedback on any additional resources that you would like to explore from TierPoint. Now, if you want to learn some more right now, you can all go download the TierPoint Solution Brief, Manage Public Cloud, Speed Up Adoption, and Gain a Competitive Edge with TierPoint Public Cloud Solutions right in the handout section today. Now, this is a really great read and a great way to follow up on everything that we heard about from Corey and Derek. But for now, it's time to get some more excitement going. And that's right, it's time for our very last prize giveaway. Now, a quick reminder to everybody that you must be present today at the webinar to win. So let's get going. Our first lucky winner of the $300 Amazon gift card is Ash Arian from Illinois. Congratulations, Ash. And now we have the Apple Watch Ultra giveaway, and we have two lucky winners for that today. We have William Bocher from Maryland and Sid Joshi from Missouri. Congratulations to both of you on winning those awesome Apple Watches. And Jess, can you read our whole winners list for today?
Oh, you bet I can, Melissa. We have quite the winners list here. So if you are here live and present at the summit, you might hear your name on the list. This was a $300 Amazon gift card going to Manav Mittal of Michigan, my favorite alliterative winner of the day, Manav Mittal of Michigan. A $300 Amazon gift card going to Shannon Kennedy of Texas, and a $300 Amazon gift card going to Ash Arian of Illinois. Congratulations to all of you. Then we've got 3 HomePods going to Thomas Lamb of California, Phil Jerez of Texas, Alejandra Briano of California. We've got 3 Kindle Scribes going to Claudia Avalos of Texas, Johnny Zhang of Minnesota, and Lauren Bays of California. And then those 2 Apple Watch Ultras going to William Bocher of Maryland and Sid Joshi of Missouri. Congrats to all our winners. As always, as Melissa has said throughout, we will be in touch with you about claiming your prizes after we wrap. So stay tuned for that, and also stay tuned for that best question gift card. Remember that we're evaluating all the questions asked after we wrap up our summit today. So even if we didn't get to your question during a live Q&A session, you are still entered to win. So thank you for submitting all of those questions. Keep that up. If you have any last questions, get those in the queue. There's still time to do that. All right, my friends. Well, boy, Melissa, this day has just flown by. And I do want to remind everyone out there that if you are sitting here on the summit today and thinking, this has been a really good time, I think I'd like to join in. It is a good time, and you should join in. If you have a solution that you would like to present on a future summit, an EcoCast, a MegaCast, a webinar, whatever you have in mind, our team would love to hear from you. So please reach out via email at connect@actualtechmedia.com. And with that, on behalf of the Actual Tech Media team, I want to once again thank all of our incredible speakers here with us today from Strong DM, Rubrik, and TierPoint for making this summit possible. And hey, a big thank you to Melissa for being here with us today as our guest moderator.
Thank you again so much for having me, Jess. I've had so much fun at the summit today. And a special thank you to all of you for attending and asking some really great questions. Now, our topic today is really exploring innovation in IT, right? And up-leveling those business outcomes. But any of you know me that I can get a little nerdy, especially when it comes to security. So there was a really nice security vein through everything today. Because let's face it, if we want to up-level our IT organizations, we have to get a handle on our IT security, which will allow us to, get back to doing those awesome things that everybody loves to do instead of fighting off, ransomware and data loss and silly things like that. The good news is our amazing vendors today have solutions to help you get everything you need to in line.
I love that. That's such a good reminder. And that is a big part of why we spend time having these conversations is, you take a little time out of your day, which we very much appreciate. And hopefully we're giving you some things that you can take back to your organization and get back to the things you really enjoy doing. Maybe that is fighting, Melissa, you're a big fan of fighting threat actors all the time. So maybe that is their jam.
It could be, yeah.
All right. Well, speaking of which, Melissa and I want to make sure that you have got this on your calendar. We want to invite you to come back and join us on Friday for an expert series. Melissa, you've been a guest speaker for us a bunch of times at expert series, so they're a good time.
Oh yeah, expert series are just like some of the best webinars out there because we really take a deep dive into a topic. And, part of an expert series is we really want to provide that expert level actionable device. So you're really going to take something away from this webinar that you can just kind of go and implement almost immediately.
Yep. All right. So there you go. If that hasn't sold you, nothing will. Make sure you've got this on your calendar. Come back and join us to talk about best practices to protect against zero-day threats. It's going to be Friday, November 10th at noon Eastern and 9 a.m. Pacific. Noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. We're going to, again, be digging into those best practices. Always love to see that. And zero-day threats. This is going to be a really interesting conversation. Lots of layers, lots to explore. So be sure you've got your calendar marked. Well, Melissa, again, thank you so much for being here with us today. And to all of you out there, I hope that we get to see you all again soon. And until we do, have an absolutely beautiful end to your day.